I think you might be able to give us a little bit more detail about the experiences of the justice and legal system inside Myanmar.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you to all those who made these panel discussions and this report happen. Indeed, the report covers the detrimental effect of the attempted coup on justice systems as well as lawyers and paralegals across Myanmar. These civilians are risking everything simply to do their job, protecting rule of law and beyond, representing the pro-democracy movement. But today I would like to emphasize a few points. First, I would like to underscore the fact that the Myanmar's judiciary has never been truly independent. Over the past 3 decades or more, the military manipulated the judicial systems to legitimize its illegal authority and brutal control. Before the so-called political transition, the military and its related bodies actually pursued many of these tactics that we are witnessing today in Myanmar. Among them, the militaries appointed judicial officers, judges, prosecutors, and officially used the phrase like, according with the law, to justify their actions. And they continue using this phrase today. And even during this supposedly democratic transition, although the NLD government attempted to reform the justice sectors by appointing civilian judges, the judiciary was still deprived of independence, impartiality, and competency. The military remained in charge of appointing many of the higher-ranking judges, leaving it forces to continue to commit mass atrocity against ethnic minorities, including the attack of genocide against Rohingya in 2017. That is why it is essential for us to rely on the international justice processes and advocate for them and the international community to bring justice to victims and survivors across Myanmar. Second, I would like to emphasize that the military has long used the justice systems, including its laws, courts, and trial to target ethnic minorities and other civilians, including human rights defenders and legal practitioners. The military has traditionally weaponized the laws and court to target protesters over the several decades, including crackdown against the protesters in 1974, 1988, and 2007 uprisings. In the case of Rohingya, the usage of laws and criminal justice system has been pivotal tool to weaken the community for decades by criminalizations of the public servants through mass arrests and targeting the educated and young one in the early stage of genocide since 1990s, and continue to target the community through restrictions of movement, marriage, birth, and so many other ways until today. And this whole area has been overlooked and under-discussed by the scholars and international communities. Third, since the attempted coup, the military has intensified these decades-long tactics of weaponizing the country's justice sectors through imposing martial laws, amending the penal code and criminal procedures, as it has done time and time again. The military is clearly doing this to justify their brutality against all people across Myanmar. By enacting martial laws, the military attempted to justify its invasive searches, arbitrary arrest and detention, murder against peaceful protesters and other innocent civilians. The usage of the military courts and closed trial has become very common. this time the tactics, the weaponizations of laws to brutalize the civilian has been extreme, and we have never seen these massive scales, and we have to acknowledge that. And this, for me, this only happened because this whole area of using the justice systems for their benefit, for their advantage to brutalize the country has been overlooked for decades. Now that they're not just, it's not just the civilian protesters, but also, as was discussed in the report, they have been increasingly targeting lawyers and paralegals and their family members. And especially women's lawyers are facing extra or different forms of targets, threats, and intimidations every day. And the report today reminds us once again, it's reminded us how many lawyers continue to use their knowledge and skills and risk their life to represent pro-democracy movement and human rights defenders. But we still don't have the exact number of arrests. Actually, a lot of the areas that cannot be covered or reached by the NGOs and lawyers, and there are massive gap for legal aid and protection, legal representations for the detainees. And that is another point that we also have to acknowledge and try find ways to fill the gap while providing support to the lawyers and paralegals who are assisting these detainees. So I think these are some of the gaps that I'm seeing at this point. Missing areas of legal support, and then support for the existence, the current lawyers who are doing their job, and there hasn't been enough of it. And find ways to support more lawyers to be able to support the detainees and provide legal representations and increase access to justice, and also providing support for the organizations in the minorities areas and marginalized areas to be able to provide legal aid. And I think finding ways to work on strengthening access to justice in Myanmar in general, and having a short-term, medium-term, and long-term strategy to really strengthening access to justice overall, and also as was discussed in the report, supporting maybe providing support to reimagine justice systems and developing independent, competent, and impartial and inclusive justice system through the NUG government or other local actors in ethnic minorities areas. I'll stop here and happy to take part in the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Wai Wai.